I've heard that truth is stranger than fiction. But there are people who do things beyond imagination. This story I experienced is quite rare. My name is Jane. I met my boyfriend Jim through a friend. We had been dating for a little over a year. The whole thing started when we got married somewhat spontaneously. As we began our new life together, I moved into his apartment. After organizing my belongings, I was ready to submit our marriage registration at the city hall. But then, I was suddenly struck by a fever. The doctor diagnosed me with the flu, and Jim said,
"I'll submit the marriage registration by myself."
So, I left it to him. A few hours later, I heard Jim returning home, and a sweet voice calling out,
"Jim."
I thought, did he bring another woman home because I'm sick? But it was just my mother-in-law accompanying him, and I had misunderstood due to my high fever. My mother-in-law opened the door to the room where I was lying down and asked,
"Jane, aren't you going to greet me?"
Forcing a sick person to greet her. What kind of tyrant is she? As I pretended to be asleep, my mother-in-law continued her attack. My mother-in-law forcefully pulled off my blanket and screamed,
"What a sloppy appearance."
I'm sick, you know."
"Get up and change your clothes. It's disgraceful."
She tried to pull me out of bed. The flu is contagious, so please just leave me alone," I blurted out in my panic. Where was Jim? I could hear the TV blaring from the other room. It sounded like a comedy show. He was laughing along with the audience. "Seriously, husband? Your wife is being attacked by your mother."
"What kind of wife are you, really? Enough. I don't have time to deal with such a sloppy wife. Since you can't cook because you're bedridden, I'll prepare Jim's meals instead. Be grateful, you useless wife."
She shouted as she left the room. Treating a sick person like that. She must be a demon.
"Jim, Mom's going to cook for you,"
I heard her say through the door.
"Yeah, I heard you earlier."
Jim replied. Listening to their conversation, I felt a wave of exhaustion wash over me. If you heard her, why didn't you stop her? This kind of back and forth continued, with my mother-in-law attacking me repeatedly and Jim not defending me, which only made my frustration grow. It took 5 days for my fever to go down because I couldn't sleep peacefully. Oh, I shouldn't have gotten married. I already miss my single days. After a 2-day waiting period, I returned to work and informed my boss about my marriage. Since we weren't planning to have a wedding, I only needed to inform my boss and the General Affairs Department. Although I'm a bit of a loner at work, I have one friend in the General Affairs Department.
Congratulations on your marriage. Did you take a week off for your honeymoon? How luxurious.
My friend said with a smirk. I could only sigh. I just got the flu and was constantly harassed by my mother-in-law. I replied.
That's hilarious.
My friend laughed. I didn't find it funny at all. Later, my friend, who works in general affairs, gave me some instructions.
It's been a week since you submitted the registration, so your marriage certificate should be ready. Go get it. I'll handle the rest of the paperwork.
I listened to that seriously. At that time, all I could think was, I want a divorce as soon as possible. I had no idea that a surprising turn of events was waiting for me. After work, I went to the city hall and asked the staff to issue my marriage certificate. Huh? I felt something was off when I saw the name on the certificate. My last name was still my maiden name. What does this mean? I quickly sent a message to my friend in the General Affairs Department. My name on the marriage certificate is still my maiden name. Why is that? I got an immediate reply.
The marriage registration wasn't submitted. Could it be?
So, I thought I was married, but it was just my imagination. Yes, it's that shocking truth. Frustrated by the message exchange, my friend called me.
You haven't been scammed out of money, have you?
No, but my freedom to rest peacefully was taken away.
Submit a non-acceptance notice for the marriage registration. Your husband might be a con artist.
A con artist. The boyfriend I dated for a year is a con artist. It seemed too much, but considering his mother is a demon, it made sense. Following my friend's valuable advice, I submitted a non-acceptance notice.
Aren't you shocked?
My friend asked during the call. I was puzzled. Objectively, I should have been shocked since my partner had betrayed me. This was indeed a moment to feel shocked. However, after experiencing my mother-in-law's harassment and seeing my boyfriend's mama's boy tendencies firsthand, I realized, I just noticed, but I don't have any love left. Enduring such treatment is bad for my health.
It's good you're not feeling down. But what is your boyfriend thinking?
I was indeed curious about his intentions.
There must be some reason. Not submitting the marriage registration? It would be immediately obvious, like today when you saw the marriage certificate.
My friend continued. That was true. Jim is a 27-year-old working adult. He should know that such a lie would be quickly exposed. Could there be an ulterior motive? Is this really a marriage scam? I wondered.
Maybe he was testing you. If you couldn't see through this, you'd be the perfect target for a scam.
My friend suggested. It was insulting to think he saw me as that foolish. I won't forgive anyone who calls me a fool. Fueled by anger, I made a decision. Although I boasted to my friend, what I actually did was rather mundane, recording conversations between my mother-in-law and Jim. Watching myself record their conversations made me feel like I was the one committing a crime. After 3 days of effort, all I got was more of my mother-in-law's harassment and Jim's mama's boy antics. My impatience won out before I could gather any solid evidence. I got bored. Being a detective is tough. But I didn't know. The day I sent that message to my friend, an unexpected turn of events awaited me, something you wouldn't find in a novel. At dinner, I was enduring the usual harassment from my mother-in-law, with her tasteless stew in front of me. My eyes must have looked lifeless. Seeing my defeated state, my mother-in-law smiled with satisfaction.
You've been unhappy since you got married, haven't you, Jane? But you need to understand that I'm teaching you how to be a proper wife. You should be grateful.
She chuckled. Aha, I replied, lacking any enthusiasm.
What's with that response? What a terrible wife. Oh, Jim, it's a good thing you didn't actually marry this woman.
She continued. Wait, she knew I wasn't really married? She was harassing me even though I wasn't her daughter-in-law?
Mom, that's.
Jim started to say.
Oh, it was supposed to be a secret. I let it slip.
My mother-in-law said, coughing theatrically and looking at me.
You must be surprised, so I'll tell you. Jim and I had a plan. A plan for our happiness.
She revealed. What? I was stunned. I thought Jim was acting alone, but it turned out his mother was part of the scam too. Could it be that they noticed I was snooping around? What exactly is this plan for their happiness? I was thrilled by the novel-like turn of events.
You haven't realized it, so I'll tell you. The marriage registration was never submitted. In other words, you and Jim are just strangers.
My mother-in-law said with a smirk. Oh, I already knew that.
I felt bad, but I was following Mom's instructions.
Once you're married, there's no turning back. If you're not suitable, we'll just have you bear a child and then discard you. That way, we won't tarnish the marriage certificate.
My mother-in-law continued. A child? Not money? So what you're saying is? I asked, confused.
We didn't submit the marriage registration to see if you could handle being a wife.
She explained. What? That's it? Could there be a more disappointing plot twist in a novel? No way. I muttered. Give me back my 3 days of effort. I hung my head and trudged back to my room. I grabbed the bag I had packed in advance in case I needed to escape if my eavesdropping was discovered. Jim hurriedly approached me.
I never meant to hurt you.
But I looked down and said, It's over. Goodbye. I mean, a boyfriend who's a con artist? That's straight out of a novel. My parents were shocked when I suddenly came home. When I told them the marriage was a lie, they were left speechless with their mouths agape. Since it was already late at night, they treated me like I was fragile and told me to just go to bed. Taking advantage of having the next day off, I vented all night with my friend from General Affairs and a few other friends. By the next day, I was feeling fine, but I had no idea that things were happening behind the scenes. On Monday night, the doorbell at my parents' house rang, and I heard my father's angry voice answering it.
Go away.
He kept shouting. I rushed to the entrance to find Jim there, with my mother-in-law behind him.
Jane. Please listen to me.
Jim pleaded, pushing past my father. Why? I asked.
What? Why? We were doing fine when we were dating, right? At least hear me out.
Jim started talking without my permission. According to him, my mistreatment had been exposed through friends, reaching colleagues and acquaintances. When he went to work, he was met with icy stares, and after being forced to explain, one of Jim's friends spat out.
So you were a marriage scammer.
Now that I think about it, one of Jim's colleagues was at the all-night venting session. Jim seemed to think he could repair his relationships if he got my forgiveness.
I never meant to deceive you. I was planning to secretly submit the marriage registration later.
No way. There are various procedures after marriage, right? I found out immediately when I went to get the marriage certificate.
What? Really?
Jim seemed genuinely surprised. Was he just ignorant? I felt foolish for suspecting an ulterior motive. As I stood there in shock, my mother-in-law butted in.
You knew and stayed anyway. Forgive Jim quickly, and then I'll acknowledge you as a daughter-in-law.
How annoying. I'm not your daughter-in-law, so I don't care anymore. I don't want to be even if you ask.
What did you say?
She retorted. Your son is a mama's boy, your cooking is terrible, your harassment is repetitive, and your snide remarks are stupid. I continued.
What?
I continued my attack on my trembling mother-in-law. You said you wanted me to have a child to avoid tarnishing the marriage certificate. That's a blatant violation of human rights. Do you understand that a wife is not a tool?
You're being too harsh on Mom.
Jim protested. The one being harsh is you, I retorted. Jim flinched. What you did is marriage fraud, I continued.
I didn't take anything from you.
Jim started. You stole my precious time. Time is a valuable asset, you idiot. I almost grabbed Jim by the collar, but my father stepped in to stop me.
Jane, that's enough. The neighbors. They're applauding.
Looking around, I saw familiar neighbors clapping and saying,
Jane, you're amazing.
Meanwhile, some people who knew Jim and his mother were whispering among themselves. I turned to the pale-faced Jim and his mother. Don't ever show your faces here again. If I see you near my house, I'll call the police. I threatened. Then, as an afterthought, I added, I have recordings of the conversations where you harassed me as a supposed daughter-in-law. I'll be claiming compensation. My lawyer will be in touch, so look forward to it. I smiled sweetly, delivering the final blow. After that, Jim's situation remained the same, with everyone continuing to shun him. He was removed from team projects and relegated to the desolate document management department. It was effectively a notice of dismissal. My mother, who loves gossip, knew about his mother. Apparently, during the recent commotion, some acquaintances were present, and now the mother and son are infamous in the neighborhood as con artists. They live a life of hiding, feeling ashamed even when going shopping. All of this was caused by their own foolishness. Despite the anticlimactic ending, I quite like how things turned out.
How did you like this story? Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.